Hi, welcome back to the Xfiles vlogs. I still want to believe. We're working on, and this is Smirking Gun, and I'm Rob. Hopefully I start getting better at all these intros and things like that, and we'll get better lighting eventually. It's the X-Files. It's supposed to be dark and moody anyway. So this is episode 2 of season 10, Founder's Mutation. The spoiler-free part is going to be very short. And in fact, I think any of these are going to be very short. So if you haven't watched the episode, stop watching this right now. Go watch the episode. Do yourself a favor. So the spoiler-free part is Guy hears noises. Something bad happens to Guy. They investigate. They want to know why he died. Leads them to some pretty crazy places. Crazy, disturbing things are shown and happen. And then it's over. That's it. I mean, to tell you anything about the X-Files, I almost feel like we're back to the days before the internet was popular. So that's awesome. So if you don't want spoilers or you haven't seen the episode, don't watch this. Go on Amazon or find Hulu or whatever and watch it. So that's where the spoiler-free part ends. Because I can't think of anything that doesn't spoil things. So, here we go. Anybody still here? Probably not. Anyway. So, a guy named Sanjay walks into his job at a place I believe that is called Ingenix. And goes to a normal business meeting. Sits down. But you can tell this guy is having a pretty bad day. And you can tell that he's hearing things. He's got these sound waves blasting through him. And as the meeting goes on, it gets worse and worse, and it's piercing his brain, and he's hearing people talk up close and slow, and he looks out the window, and there's crows all over the ground. It's really creepy imagery where you can't tell if this guy is seeing things or not. So he, after that goes on for a little bit of time, he's like, can anybody else hear this? And he runs off and he goes to a secured room where he's looking for something on a computer terminal, and people are banging outside like, hey, are you okay, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they know something we don't. That's another thing that occurred to me while I was watching it. And whatever he's done, he starts writing in his hand really ferociously, like just, and then he takes a letter opener. He sticks it in his ear and he kills himself. Just jams that sucker in there all. It was pretty awesome, gotta say. For an Xfiles first standalone in 13 years. Letter opener to the head, pretty awesome. Keep it up. So, boom. That's the first standalone cold open. So then we get to the rigmarole that is, Mulder and Scully go to investigate. There's a guy from the Department of Defense who tells them, you can't handle this stuff. This is all evidence of the Department of Defense. That guy is played by Aaron Douglas from Battlestar Galactica. It was good to see him in this, even though it was only for one scene. But in the midst of that, Mulder steals the guy's phone. And after hearing I believe, the Patriot Act delivered by Scully, I think, about cell phones and messages and stuff, Mulder, of course, brushes it off and says, we're going to find this guy's contacts. And they find a guy named Gupta. First Gupta Scully thinks of is the famous Gupta, and it's not that. So Mulder goes to meet this guy, who is played by Vic Sahay. Vic Sahay is one of the reasons why I stopped watching the show Chuck, because I didn't find him funny. I called him the dickhead from Chuck. Because, it's not his fault. He's an actor. He's got to take jobs. And poor writing does not help things. So, in this, though, he did a really terrific job. He got to play pretty serious, and it was like the funniest moment in the show, which is Mulder's the guy looking to find information on his victim. So he goes to this bar, not knowing what it is. So it's your great guy walks into a bar joke. Starts right there. And the guy's like, are those guys bothering you, to Mulder? And he's like, not yet. You don't know yet that this is a gay bar. And Mulder, who thinks he's interviewing a guy for information, doesn't know that the other guy thinks he's on a date. And after convincing this guy that he can trust Mulder, they go into a back room. You can see where this is heading a mile away, but it doesn't stop that it's actually funny, even though you know where this is going. So Mulder thinks he's about to get information from a guy, and this guy is trying to blow Mulder. It is pretty darn well pulled off and funny as hell. The truth is in here. It is pretty hilarious. Well, you find out that the guy kind of had two houses. So they go to his house and they find all these pictures of deformed children, genetically manipulated or experimented on children. At this point, you didn't know. Very hard to watch, very sad. Like, I know this wasn't, these weren't real pictures. These were actors. I hope they were. God, I hope they were. Because that would just be, sometimes knowing that this stuff is actually out there, if there was actually real pictures, it would make it even harder to watch. So they know that somebody's been working on children, and then suddenly Mulder is stricken with the same pain that the victim had. And they cut to black, and we end up in Skinner's office, where this is the second appearance of Walter Skinner, Mitch Pileggi, love him, where they do the rigmarole in front of the Department of Defense guy, who is like, if you tell anybody this, we're going to prosecute you hard. Skinner's like, I can't look at those pictures, case is closed. Guy leaves, and Skinner basically turns right around, does 360, like, oh, well, I guess it's going to be a little while before we can fix this, so good luck, and welcome back, you guys. Nice. Nicely done. So, after that fact, they end up, I'm looking at my notes saying DOD guy's a dick. Well, Mulder made copies of the evidence, and they find Mulder talks about infrasound, which is this kind of sound that brings worms to the surface of the ground when you see robins come out, like raindrops hitting the ground, things that we can't hear, but other things can, which explains the crows being outside the window. So whatever was causing this disturbance is psychic in nature, is what they're leading you to believe. Well, Scully's worried about that, but they go to a hospital where they run into Scully thinks she can get them access to the founder of this genetics place. This is where we meet the lady who, on the original run of the show, was Scully's old therapist, Karen Koskoff. I don't have that actress's name, but if you see her, she's one of those people that looks like she's been in everything, because she has. She's a veteran of the Xfiles. She's been in multiple things on that show, I believe. So while they're there, they want to meet this guy. They tell her, give her an excuse to meet the founder. And they also run into this girl named Agnes, who is played by the girl who was Abigail in Hannibal. There's a lot of guest stars in this. And again, they were kind of throwaways. A lot of, people that are probably going to be pretty famous, for other things. She says that she wants to keep her baby. Somebody's trying to take it. She wants out of there. And they end up with the nurse, and she says they can't meet Goldman, blah, blah, blah. And this is where the episode takes a turn, because they go outside, and they start talking about, from the original run of the show, when Scully was pregnant, does she think that this was what Mulder was really researching this episode or this case for? Was her own pregnancy, and does she think that she was just an experiment all along? And Mulder says very classically, you're never just anything to me, Scully, which is classic Mulder Scully banter and awesome. And this is where, when I first watched the show, I kind of was disappointed that they were trying to blend too much mythology into a standalone episode. But I watched this thing that James Wong put online that explained why that was in there. And it talks about how their flashbacks or their fantasy dreams of that turned from dream to nightmare. Scully's is, taking her son off to school and then finding out that he's genetically modified and is going to probably have a terrible life as a mutant. And then Mulder's is, quoting Kennedy and shooting off rockets to being afraid that he's going to be kidnapped just like his sister was. When I hear it in the context of James Wan put it in there, it made a lot more sense. So that's why this episode ended up going from a 4 to a 5-star thing for me. So after all that, and that really did kind of slam the brakes on the momentum of the episode, which is another reason why I was kind of like, I don't know why they're doing this. But anyway. So they end up finding out on a camera that the kid has been the janitor and he's looking around for something, and they talk to a guy and they find out where this kid lives. But actually, I just totally missed a whole big thing in here. They find out that Goldman, the doctor, had a wife. And they go to the asylum and they ask her about her husband, and they talk about her daughter, Molly. And this is another really good moment of the show where they talk about how they were at a birthday party and Molly hadn't been seen, and they see her, the mother sees her in the pool, and she dives in, and she'd been in there for a while, and she swims down there expecting to find her daughter dead, and instead she turns around just like smiling and breathing water. And it was such a great image. They filmed that so well, and it was such a great scary turnaround of something cute of a little girl just being underwater could look so creepy and weird. And so this lady knows that something's wrong with her kid, and she's got another one in the oven. And so she takes off on her husband after assaulting him, and she knows she's not going to get far, blah, blah, blah. She ends up getting into an accident and flips the car over, and all of a sudden she gets that same pain that everybody else has been getting. And now she realizes that the noise is coming from her inside, and it's the baby trying to communicate in whatever distress or however it knows how to communicate. And so she thinks, she takes a piece of glass and cuts her stomach open. That was another pretty hard part to watch. And you see the little hand coming out of her. Ugh. And so now they're thinking, well, maybe the baby's not dead. Long story short, to get to this, they find out that the kid's not dead. That the kid has been this kid that they've run into several times throughout the episode is very innocuous. It doesn't seem to be anybody that you would pay attention to. This is the Kyle Gilligan character. They track him down to his house. His mother, his foster mother, is telling him, "Get out of here!" And Mulder goes into pain, and Scully pulls a gun on him. And apparently, pulling a gun on the kid stops him, and they take him away in the car. They go to the hospital. The doctor who's been doing tests on people decides to take his blood and says, "Hey, I'll take you to your sister." Because apparently during that whole asylum thing with his wife, he hid his daughter away from everybody. Takes him to the girl. The kid senses right away that it's not his sister. He runs off. He finds his real sister in the place. They are psychically connected, and they go carry on everybody. They break the glass with their hands. They make the doctor fall on his knees, and his eyes start bleeding, and his ears start bleeding, and everything is for that guy. And Scully and Mulder get thrown across the room like rag dolls. And then they get away, and Skinner walks up to Mulder and says, "Well, what happened? You're the last one to see anything." And Mulder says, "Well, I blacked out I got it written here. I blacked out after Goldman's eyes popped out of his sockets. Those are things you just can't not see." So, after that, basically the psychic twins get away, except that Mulder palmed the blood sample that the doctor took and says, "Trace." And it ends with Mulder looking at a picture of William, and it's kind of sad that that's how it went. That's about all I have for this episode. It was a really good episode now in second watching. I hope that the next one, which I believe is by Darren Morgan and has also Kumail Nanjiani in it, one of my favorite guys who does an Xfiles podcast, who kind of inspired me to do this, is doing his thing in that episode. So I feel like I'm wrapping it up rather quickly, but I think I've said everything that I can. So hope to see you in the next episode. It's going to be season 10, episode 3. It's something about a were-monster. But that's all I have. Thank you. And thank you very much.